life is full of choices. I'm the man I choose to be.
Well, bonjour cool cats. What is up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Malaya. Welcome if you're new here, and this is part of my style study series where I talk about style icons of the past, present, and arguably the future, and discuss their personal and style evolution, as well as rate them based on the big 5 personality traits, which, if you are unaware of, is a concept within psychology based on the following 5 personality traits of neuroticism, agreeableness, conscientiousness, extroversion, and openness. Today we will be discussing one of the best rebounders of all time in NBA history, who, unlike the golden boys of the NBA, who came from really traditional cookie cutter backgrounds, this man paved an unconventional path for himself that made him the icon we know of him today. And if it isn't obvious enough by the title, that man is Dennis Rodman, basketball superstar. Not only did he really treat rebounding as if it was an art form, but his personality and sense of style was way ahead of its time, which is why I have dubbed him a renegade visionary, who I might say is a rebel with a cause. In his biography, Bad As I Wanna Be, he really reclaims the bad boy image that is so synonymous with his name, and really delves into his personal and career struggles in the NBA, which reveals so much more than meets the eye with the character that is Dennis Rodman. So, without further ado, this is Style Studies with Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was born on May 13, 1961 to Philander and Shirley Rodman. However, at the age of 3, his father would soon leave him and his family to set off to live a life in the Philippines, which prompted Shirley to move her and the family all the way to Dallas, where they would reside at Oak Cliff Projects. Even at a very early age, according to his biography, Dennis expressed his openness to his more feminine side, and having grown up with his 2 younger sisters, Deborah and Kim, he talked about how he would dress up and even wear makeup and play pretend with them as little kids. In terms of his athleticism in high school, Rodman unfortunately did not find early success in either his basketball or football career. He stated that he was denied from his football team and would eventually quit halfway throughout the season in his sophomore year of high school in the junior varsity basketball team. After graduating from high school in Dallas, Rodman only stood up to be 5'11", but would soon experience a growth spurt which landed him to the current height he is today at 6'7". With his life living in the projects, Rodman was pretty much lost for a period of time in his early adolescence and young adult life. While his sisters made All-American at their respective colleges in their basketball teams, Rodman spent his days just having fun and not really making much of himself, and he even experienced homelessness at one point. Before all the money and fame, Rodman was just a regular guy, and even would work at 7-Eleven at one point. However, he would soon land a job as a janitor at the Dallas-Fort Worth airport, which would prove to be a very transformative experience for Rodman, which made him into the man he is today. His time at the airport was interesting to say the least. Being paid at $6.50 an hour, he participated in some petty crime over some watches just for the kick of it, and would give out the watches for free at no cost to his friends and family. Police would later find out about the incidents through security cameras at the airport and would arrest Rodman. However, after rounding up all the watches, the charges would be dropped on him and he would be set free. After a faithful encounter with Loretta Westbrook, Rodman would eventually try out on the basketball team at Cook County Junior College, having only played 16 games, but would soon end up at Southeastern Oklahoma University in 1983, having been offered a full scholarship. In his senior year there, at the age of 25, the NBA thought of him as an oddball and didn't really know what to make of him, but he eventually got drafted by the Pistons in the 1986 draft, in the second round being the 27th player to have been chosen. And this would be the start of the Worms' defensive and rebound plays in the NBA. His time at the Pistons saw the success of the infamous Bad Boys team, and where he also developed a good relationship with the head coach Chuck Daly. There he found tremendous success, having winning alongside his teammates with their back-to-back national championships in the years 1989 and 1990. Though in terms of style at this time, Rodman didn't really know how to express himself to his fullest potential just yet, and after his teammates would eventually get drafted and moved on to other teams, as well as the absence of Chuck Daly, Rodman would soon see himself being traded over to the Spurs in the year 1993. Rodman's time at the San Antonio Spurs was really when we saw the true essence of Dennis Rodman's character really come alive. However, this wouldn't have been possible without the attempted suicide that he experienced one April night, where Rodman really contemplated ending his life with a rifle in his lap, sitting in a pickup truck. Wrestling with the man he wanted to portray out into the world, Rodman decided then and there that he was finally going to unleash the full power of who Rodman is and really express himself true to who he is at his core. This is when he would start experimenting, dyeing his hair with fellow hairdresser David Chapa, where we would see so many of those amazing iconic looks. Though this was great for him, his professional life was a whole nother picture. His relationships with the Spurs would prove to be troublesome, as there would be conflicts over him and his team, where he would get docked for missing just one practice, and had some complications with the Spurs management over his contract negotiations, and speaking out about his relationship with Greg Popovich, who was the general manager and vice president of the basketball operations. It wasn't until Rodman was finally drafted into the Bulls where he finally felt accepted by both his teammates and his coach. And this is where we saw the legendary trio really come together to create an amazing couple seasons together. His time at the Chicago Bulls, Rodman found a lot of solace in the team, and this mainly had to do with the coach Phil Jackson, who was such a swell guy. He really let Rodman be who he was and overlooked a lot of his antics and really accepted him for who he is. The iconic triad of Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman was a killer team. Rodman definitely set out to do all the dirty work in terms of the defensive and rebound plays, and his presence was obviously a necessary key if the Bulls ever stood a chance at the championships again, and they placed their bet right on the money, having won their second three-peat championships for the 1996 to 1998 season. After being released, he would soon play in the Lakers and the Mavericks for some time before ultimately choosing to retire from the NBA. The rest of Rodman's career would lead him to become so much more than a basketball player, but he branched out to become an author, an actor, and presently the unofficial US peace ambassador for North Korea. As we can see, Rodman's impact has been able to spread wide both on and off the court. Obviously, Rodman achieved many feats during his NBA career, having been a 5-time NBA champion and a Hall of Famer. Unlike the others, he didn't really set out to score, but he went out to rebound, and that was his main focus. He strove to perfect his craft, even stating that he wanted to treat it as if it was an art form. And every rebound to him was a personal challenge. His works weren't for nothing, as it would pay off in the 1991 to 92 season, where he broke the Pistons single game record, pulling down 34 in a game against the Indiana Pacers. This obviously had a great effect on high school and college campuses alike, where Rodman expressed that there would be some high school coaches and college coaches as well that wanted to thank him for making rebounding cool again. And we can't not talk about how this man's style literally paved the way for the styles that we are seeing today. And I think at this point in time, we have really normalized men being able to express their more feminine side when it comes to their style, as well as them even painting their nails. With that being said, how does Dennis scale up to the big 5 personality traits? The first personality trait that we will be talking about is openness. So this refers to imagination and insight, and you are curious about the world and eager to learn new things and experience new things. If you are low on the scaling, you dislike change, resist new ideas, and you pretty much stick to tradition. However, if you are high on this, you are very creative and open to trying new things. Rodman is definitely very high on this scale. I think he is very open about his style and the way he chooses to express himself. Throughout the majority of his NBA career, he continuously defied the status quo of what a man in the NBA is supposed to look like. And he did this by dyeing his hair, painting his fingernails, even cross-dressing, as well as having tons of tattoos and piercings. He had that I don't really give a fuck attitude, and I feel like people really appreciated seeing someone like him because it was just something new and something fresh that not a lot of people expected. Not only in terms of that, but he was also very open about sexuality, even expressing in his book and also in an Oprah interview that he has had gay thoughts before, which is honestly so great to hear because so many guys are so afraid to admit that when it's a normal occurrence. But I also especially loved his open support within those who had AIDS. In the 1995 playoffs, he actually went out and revealed the AIDS symbol dyed onto his hair, which is so great because he really loves the gay community and really strove out to represent them and those who have AIDS by really trying to destigmatize a condition. But obviously this wouldn't be the case if Dennis wasn't so confident in himself, and which is why he's able to be so effortlessly himself and be so cool about it. The next trait that we will be talking about is extroversion, and this refers to high amounts of sociability, talkativeness, and emotional expressiveness. If you are low on this, you prefer solitude, you feel exhausted when talking a lot, and dislike being the center of attention. However, if you are high on this, you enjoy being the center of attention and feel energized when other people are around. I want to say that Rodman is a low and even bordering moderate, and I want to say this because Rodman even said himself that he doesn't really like talking to anybody and that he really likes to keep to himself. His fellow teammate Pippen also said the same thing about him. However, I think Rodman borders moderate because his personal style says otherwise, and he's placed in situations where he is the center of attention due to his unconventional clothing, and he really pairs things in a way that is very different and that you don't really expect. He keeps it fresh by wearing a lot of funky hats paired with these goggle-like sunnies, and wears a lot of skin-tight revealing clothing that I feel like really makes a person really fascinated with the character of Rodman. The next personality trait that we were talking about is agreeableness, and this is the relation to desire to how well you get along with others and or ideas. If you are low, you are independent and competitive. If you are high on this, you are trusting, and I think that Dennis Rodman scores low on this. I feel like Dennis is so confident in his own abilities that he doesn't really need anybody because he is so independent and so aware of his own abilities for him and his team. And I feel like this sense of knowing and the power that he knows he just exudes can really intimidate people in a way. This also transcends into a style as well. People really didn't give him the opportunity and the chance to really understand what makes him him. He strays from what is expected and proudly sports things such as sequins, different patterns mix match together, and would go on to wear women's clothing in his book signings. The next trait that we will be talking about is neuroticism. So this has mainly to do with emotionality, and if you are low on this, you are emotionally stable, very relaxed, and rarely upset. However, if you are high on this, you are sensitive, very vulnerable, and oftentimes moody. And I think he is very high on this scaling, and I think there are so many instances where Rodman is able to showcase his vulnerability out into the public, and he even expressed his feelings of gratitude when he publicly cried after winning Defensive Player of the Year in 1990. With his own personal style, Rodman had some very cool, albeit questionable looks throughout his life. He wore a wedding dress and claimed to have married himself in order to promote the release of his autobiography, and even went out to play a Legends game with a blonde mohawk wig. The last trait that we will be talking about is conscientiousness. So this refers to good impulse and high levels of thoughtfulness. If you are low on this, you dislike structure, you're easygoing, and you are impulsive. However, if you are high on this, you are hardworking, efficient, and organized. I would have to rate him a moderate high on this. I feel like there's a method to the madness when it comes to how Rodman operates in his game, and that he is pretty methodical when it comes to how he defends and rebounds against other players, and it's because he knows the game of basketball in and out. He knows what ticks people off, how to get them going. This is also the case when it comes to his personal style, and this attitude comes from a knowing of who he really is, which is why I think he is deliberate of his sense of self-expression and how he chooses to portray himself out into the world. He has the vision that works for him. And also, I think that the situation in the parking lot took a lot of mental power not to be impulsive and pull that trigger, ending your life right there. And I think he was very hardworking and really strove to showcase who he was. In conclusion, I think it's really safe to say that Dennis Rodman really revolutionized the way we see menswear today. He was definitely setting all the trends back in the day, but I feel like no one really understood or appreciated what he stood for. But at this point in time, obviously, we see the way that men have been able to express themselves outside of that hyper masculine image that's expected of them from society. And it was so refreshing to see someone so authentic and genuine to who they are as a person and not care about what anybody else had to say about them. And I encourage any of you guys who are watching this to learn a thing or two from Rodman and just be you, be unapologetically you, and maybe even go out and read his book. His philosophy and mindset was such an interesting brain to pick. And one of my favorite lines from his book was on page 103, where he said, "I'm playing the game the way it should be played. I'm doing it for the little kids who come to the game and say, 'Mommy, Daddy, I like that guy with the green hair.'" Alright, so that is it for today's installment of Style Studies. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you guys liked the video and got some enjoyment and entertainment out of it. Thank you for being here. If you guys had any thoughts about Dennis Rodman, feel free to share your thoughts and maybe some suggestions below of who I should study next for future Style Studies episodes. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys the next time. Bye!